I am Mark, 34 years old, proud father of two tiny humans, and husband to Sierra, who is 32. Stunning, smart, and unfortunately blessed with parents who treat her like she descended from heaven, and treat me like I wandered in from the service entrance. Our kids are Ethan, who is 6 and powered by fruit snacks and chaos, and Mia, who is 3 and has the gravitational pull of a small moon because she insists on sitting on me at all times. My in-laws, Rick, who is 62, and Darla, who is 59, are the kind of people who smile at you but somehow make you feel like you should apologize for your existence. Not because they hate me, no, they just tolerate me. They tolerate me the way someone tolerates a wet dog wandering into their kitchen. It is technically allowed to be there, but they would prefer it air dry somewhere else. Meanwhile, my own parents adored Sierra just as much as they adored me. I was that kid who showed up whenever they needed something. I fixed their Wi-Fi 800 times, climbed on ladders to clean gutters that absolutely could have killed me, and helped with anything involving tools, technology, or deciphering mail that looked suspicious. I drove them to appointments, ran errands, kept the house functional, and once paid their electric bill because my dad got distracted entering online sweepstakes he insisted were a sure thing. And when they passed a couple of years ago, they left us a modest nest egg of $35,000, which we used like responsible people, paid down the part of the minivan, and chipped away at the mountain of medical bills from Mia's emergency C-section. My parents had love and practicality. My in-laws had opinions and mimosas. One Sunday during brunch at their house, Mike and I swear I am not making this up, Rick began by telling me that my pancake flipping technique showed signs of what he called a sheltered childhood. I still have no idea what this means. Is there an elite training program for flipping pancakes? Do people grow up in the wild flipping them off campfires with rugged precision? I do not know. I just know Rick believes he has mastered every domestic skill, like he is the final boss of suburban breakfast. So I am already in a mood when they drop what I now refer to as the bomb. Darla, sipping her mimosa like she is preparing for an audition for Real Housewives but discounted, tells us that they want to take Sierra on a 7-day Caribbean cruise. Just Sierra, not me. Not the kids. Just my wife. I blinked at them, and in that moment, I felt exactly like an old dial-up modem trying to load emotional capacity it did not have bandwidth for. I asked with genuine confusion what I was supposed to do with the kids during this week, where they were taking my wife on a tropical luxury escape. Darla waved her hand like she was dismissing a low-budget commercial and said it in the calmest tone. Well, sweetie, we just want quality time with Sierra. So she can relax, and you are very good with the kids, so you can handle it. For a brief moment, my brain short-circuited. I thought maybe, possibly, they were offering to take the kids so Sierra and I could have a week off. I asked if they were saying they wanted to relax with the kids. Darla laughed lightly and said, No, no, we want to relax. You keep the kids. I stared at them, trying to decipher this logic like it was written in hieroglyphics. Rick jumped in with the supportive wisdom of a man who once told me I mow the lawn too symmetrically. He said it would be good for me, that it would be bonding time, which is in-law code for saying, we do not want to bring you, Mark, and we believe you are a serviceable babysitter. I glanced at Sierra, who looked absolutely mortified and kept whispering that she did not know they planned this. She genuinely looked trapped between loyalty to me and the gravitational pull of her parents' very strange idea of a family trip. Now, here is the thing. I am not a controlling husband. If Sierra wants girl time, solo time, family time with her own family, a spa day, a weekend away with friends, whatever, I am fully supportive. In fact, I encourage it. Someone in the household should be well rested and free. It is definitely not going to be me, a man who has been running on 3 hours of sleep and goldfish cracker residue since 2019. But this was not girl time. This was not, we want to treat our daughter. This was not, we want to bond as a family. This was, we would like to surgically remove you from the itinerary and pretend you are an optional add-on. And then came the part that really cemented how intentional this was. Rick leaned back like he was about to deliver a TED talk and said proudly, "Do not worry about money. We already paid for Sierra's ticket. We did not budget for 4 people." Translation: We planned this whole thing without you in mind. We purchased everything without even asking. And at no point did we consider your family of 4 a package deal. In fact, we did not even consider asking if you wanted to pay your own way. I stared at them. I could not help it. I started laughing, not a polite laugh. The kind of laugh that bursts out of you and has an unhinged edge to it. The kind of laugh that makes people look at you like you might have finally snapped under the weight of your responsibilities. That was the moment a gear clicked into place in my brain. A plan started forming. A beautifully petty, painfully logical, completely justified plan. I smiled, nodded, and said that if they wanted a relaxing vacation with Sierra, I would absolutely make sure they got exactly what they asked for. So after that brunch, we drove home in the world's least peaceful minivan. Ethan and Mia were screaming in the backseat about who touched whose juice box first, which was impressive considering neither juice box had been opened and both were identical. Sierra sat there apologizing like she had personally orchestrated the cruise, the weather, and the invention of grandparents. I sat behind the wheel, simmering like discount chili left on low too long at a potluck nobody asked me to attend. The whole ride was one of those moments where every traffic light felt personally offended by my existence. That night, when the house was finally quiet and I was folding laundry that had somehow tripled in volume since the morning, the frustration hit me all over again. I told Sierra that if her parents wanted a relaxing vacation without kids, then we should absolutely give them the opportunity to experience what relaxing with kids truly felt like. Sierra stared at me with confusion, like she was watching me assemble chaos out of folded towels. I told her her parents loved her, but did not respect me as a parent, and that I was now prepared to fix that imbalance in the most educational way possible. She kept staring at me like I had spontaneously shape-shifted into a trickster god who specialized in fatherly vengeance. The wheels were turning in my head, not out of spite, out of principle, out of justice, out of the sudden realization that if I wanted Rick and Darla to stop treating me like a glorified nanny, I needed to let them hold the baton for once and see what music they made. The next day, Sierra's phone buzzed with a cheerful message from Darla, telling her not to forget to pack sunblock. I looked at Sierra and asked if her parents honestly thought she was going. Sierra shrugged helplessly and said they already booked everything. So, of course, they assumed she was saying yes. I told her to tell them yes. She nearly choked on air and asked what I meant, and I told her again to tell them yes, but clarified that she would not be going anywhere because the kids would be the ones enjoying the week with her parents. Sierra made a noise that could only be described as a wheeze mixed with disbelief, shocked that I would send our 2 hurricane children to her parents for an entire week. I corrected her immediately. I was not sending anything. I was arranging the exact vacation her parents asked for. They specifically said they wanted to relax with the kids. They emphasized it. They committed to it. They practically insisted on it. So I would make sure the kids were indeed with them. Not on the cruise, because the cruise was already fully booked by selective generosity, but in their house during the same week, where they could relax to their heart's content with Ethan and Mia, providing surround sound energy. The more Sierra listened, the more she stared at me like she realized she had married someone far more strategic than she previously understood. I had no intention of forcing anything. I simply decided that Rick and Darla would have exactly the experience they had verbally requested. I arranged my own schedule like a responsible adult. I set up childcare coverage for the hours I would be working. I reorganized school pickups. I planned meals. Everything was structured, airtight, logical. The kids loved visiting their grandparents. Legally, morally, ethically, grandparents spending time with their grandchildren is wholesome and celebrated. And since Rick and Darla made it very clear during brunch that they wanted quality time with the kids so they could relax, I saw no reason to deprive them of that. So I sent Darla a cheerful message telling her that Sierra would be ready for her trip and that the kids were very excited to spend the whole week with them. The response came quickly in the form of a single ellipsis that felt like a thousand-year-old question mark. I sent back another message telling her we wanted them to enjoy that relaxing quality time with the kids that they mentioned so enthusiastically. And just like that, everything went quiet. Absolutely nothing. No call, no text, not even a passive-aggressive emoji. Radio silence so loud I could hear my ancestors whisper, "Bruh." 3 days later, Sierra's phone detonated like she had somehow triggered a family-wide alarm system. Notifications rolled in nonstop, buzzing so hard the phone practically vibrated off the counter. First came her mother insisting that I was being ridiculous. Then her father chimed in to say they never agreed to watch the kids for an entire week, as if the sentence, "relax with the kids," had been some kind of mystical riddle we had interpreted incorrectly. Then her sister joined the parade with a message demanding to know what was wrong with her husband, as though I had personally sabotaged the cruise industry. The group meltdown was so dramatic I half expected them to release a press statement. Before Sierra could even finish reading through the stream of family outrage, her mother called me directly. No greeting, no preamble, no breathing. She launched straight into telling me that when they said they wanted to relax with Sierra, they did not mean babysitting our children. She emphasized that her definition of relaxation did not involve juice boxes, tantrums, or requesting a toddler to stop licking furniture. She treated the entire situation as if I had kidnapped the concept of vacation and held it for ransom. I kept my voice calm, the kind of calm that sounds like a middle management conference call where everyone secretly hates each other, but is pretending to be professional. I told her that she wanted Sierra for relaxation. The kids were apparently my responsibility, and it was interesting how this arrangement only surfaced when it was convenient for them. She sputtered like a lawnmower that had been left outside during a thunderstorm. She repeated that they wanted time with their daughter, spoken as if her daughter lived in a secret bunker, and they were trying to negotiate visitation access. I reminded her that I also wanted time with my wife, but they were not taking me. I pointed out that they had made it clear during brunch that the kids were solely my job. If Sierra went, I would still be home with all the responsibilities, which meant they were expecting me to run solo parenting duty for 7 days while they enjoyed a sunlit cruise sipping drinks served in coconuts. I explained all of this very plainly, very logically, and without an ounce of apology. Her response was to declare that I was manipulating them, which was impressive considering I had simply repeated their own words back to them. I clarified that nothing about this was manipulation. It was literally me taking their statements as truth. They said they wanted Sierra to relax. They said I could handle the kids. I was simply aligning their desires with the reality they created. If they wanted the cruise to be relaxing and child-free for Sierra, then naturally the week would be child-free for me as well. She hung up before I even finished the explanation, and I later learned she immediately called Sierra crying about how I was ruining everything. Moments after that, Rick sent me a text announcing with absolute authority that they would not be providing childcare for a week, as though he were issuing an international decree that required my compliance. And that was when the plot twisted. Sierra had already arranged her time off at work. She had already told her supervisor she would be unavailable. The request had been approved, the schedule had been shifted, and a replacement had been arranged. And for a brief moment, she actually began considering going, without the kids, without me, without responsibility, because the option was sitting right there in the palm of her hand. She looked at that cruise like it was forbidden fruit she was somehow still allowed to take a bite of. But I reminded her that I did not receive a magical week off when she did. My schedule was unchanged. My responsibilities were unchanged. The children did not transform into self-sustaining creatures who could feed themselves, bathe themselves, and negotiate their own bedtime. Someone still had to get them to school, feed them, entertain them, stop their daily attempts at small disasters, and ensure no one stuck a fork into an electrical outlet. Sierra finally saw it for what it was, a lopsided, uneven expectation that assumed I would simply absorb the entire load so everyone else could sail into the sunset. Once that realization sank in, she told her parents she was not going, and that set off a meltdown fit for Times Square. So here is where it gets beautifully petty. A day after Sierra told her parents she wasn't going on the cruise, Rick tried one last-ditch effort to guilt me. He messaged about how if I really loved Sierra, I would let her relax. And in that moment, something inside me snapped like a Walmart folding chair under a linebacker. All the simmering, all the passive-aggressive pancake critiques, all the quality time with the kids, lectures crystallized into one perfectly petty, perfectly righteous response. I told him that if he truly loved his daughter, he would respect her marriage, respect her kids, and respect the fact that family comes as a package deal. You take all of us or none of us. You do not get to pick which parts of our family get approval and which parts are optional. Darla, of course, lost her mind. She screamed that it was their vacation, as though the universe owed them a guilt-free week in the Caribbean just for existing. I calmly reminded her that yes, it was their vacation, and yes, they could enjoy it. On their terms. And then I dropped the hammer. I canceled the kids' week at their house. The moment was blissful in its clarity. Sierra and I decided to reclaim the week ourselves. We used her PTO to plan a staycation extravaganza that required zero guilt, zero judgment, and zero passive-aggressive commentary. Zoo trips, water parks, cheap Airbnbs with pools, ice cream after every meal, spontaneous dance parties in the living room, full-on chaos sanctioned by parental authority. Everything we had secretly wanted as a family, without having to tiptoe around anyone else's expectations. Ethan and Mia screamed with joy every single day, and Sierra admitted that, despite the allure of a Caribbean cruise, this week was far better than being dragged through emotional landmines disguised as family bonding. The best part, of course, was watching Rick and Darla go on their cruise. According to updates filtered through mutual friends and social media, they spent the entire trip complaining to strangers about how our daughter chose her husband over us, while sipping cocktails on deck chairs with umbrellas in their drinks. Meanwhile, Sierra blocked them for the entire week, citing that she needed time to think about boundaries, priorities, and how to stop people from treating her marriage like an amusement park ride they could hop on whenever they pleased. And then came the twist. A week later, after we returned from our chaotic, joyful, perfectly unsanctioned staycation, we got a message from Rick and Darla proposing a family vacation for next summer. Their text was practically dripping with recalibrated humility. They realized they should make more effort to include both me and the kids. Translation: they finally understood that if they wanted access to their grandchildren, they had to respect the family as a whole and accept that Sierra isn't going anywhere without her husband in tow. Did I manipulate the situation? Absolutely, but it was honest, literal, and built entirely on the words they themselves had used. Did they learn the lesson? Without a doubt. Did I get a full week of water park trips, ice cream-fueled chaos, and uninterrupted love for my wife and children, without an ounce of petty in-law energy interfering? Hell yes. And the beauty of it was that this victory came without resentment, without pettiness leaking into my parenting, and without anyone else dictating how we spend time together. So, AITA? Honestly, it doesn't even feel like a question anymore. Rick and Darla booked a cruise, but I booked character development, family bonding, and a week of memories that will stick with us far longer than any tropical sunset. The kids learned that boundaries exist and that their father is both clever and unapologetic. Sierra learned that she deserves to prioritize herself and her family. And I learned that sometimes the best vacations aren't in the Caribbean. They're in your own backyard, complete with chaos, laughter, and no unsolicited commentary from people who think they're entitled to dictate your life. So, dear listeners, thank you for listening to our story. It has been a wild ride full of lessons, laughter, and a little bit of revenge served with love. And if there's one takeaway, it's this: Sometimes you book the cruise, and sometimes you book the life you actually want. And that is the sweetest trip of all.